You are about to be privy to something that only a handful of people in our history have had access to.
Welcome back to Q Dads. Yes, it's me, Ste, and episode 7, titled The Dive, doesn't only let Juliette dive deeper into Solo 17, but we also get to dive deeper into the AI, which is called The Legacy. And for us, this episode was actually by far one of the best ones yet. And it was just great to see that relationship of Solo and Juliette develop even more. The headway that Lucas has made on Salvador's message, with it all tying back to Judge Meadows' copy of Wizard of Oz. And of course, the fact that Juliette and Solo aren't alone in Solo 17, which is something that Ben actually mentioned all the way back in episode 1, right at the start of the season. And this explains all his nervousness around leaving the vault and wanting to stop the silo from flooding because someone else is in there watching and waiting. Is this the real Solo? Or perhaps someone else? More on that in just a moment. And as always, there are no book spoilers here, guys. So we're theorising everything on the show alone. So obviously, if you do hit us in the comments, please make sure that you give us a full warning if it's a spoiler, or just avoid using them altogether. So hit that subscribe button, as it really does help the channel to grow, and me and Ben love building that community with you and discussing the show in the comments. So I want to talk about Juliette and Solo first, because the episode ended with her coming out of the water at a speed at which, well, went against Solo's advice. Which, my knowledge of the bends is probably as good as Solo's. I'm not sure if that's going to be a recurring fact. Otherwise, it felt a bit odd to mention. So, is Juliette going to suffer from this in the future? But as she does resurface, she notices that she is not in fact alone and that Solo is missing. Obviously, at first, she suspects that Solo's done a runner, but then clocks the blood and the axe and follows it, leading up the stairwell, meaning that, as we said in episode 1, we were right, Solo is not alone and someone has been watching him. For how long, we're not sure, but this leads us to a few possible outcomes. So the person watching him could be someone like the real Solo, where our version lured him out, and this is because the real Solo was the head of IT after Russell left the silo. But obviously he was ambushed and has not been able to gain access to the vault since. Hence why he's been watching from a distance, waiting for his moment. And in fact, the blood is Solo's after being attacked by the real Solo, and he has taken him somewhere that connects them both, probably the school. Or does the blood actually belong to the person who's been lurking in the shadows? And actually, when they went to attack Solo, Solo pulled out the axe and retaliated, showing us that true crazy nature. Again, this is why Ben thinks he isn't from Solo 17. He's willing to kill anyone without hesitation, and why? Plus, he's so reluctant to discuss who he really is to Juliette. This is because he's a traveller with no silo as his home. Of course, the question remains, why this person attacked Solo for in the first place? Do they want to gain entry to the vault, which they've probably been waiting for some time? Or have they attacked Solo because they actually want the suit, because he has a way of getting out and the person who's been watching is not in fact from Solo 17, or is actually, like we said, the real Solo, who's been trying to get rid of this imposter, who is nothing to do with IT, but he's just someone from Solo 17, with natural curiosity, like that of Lucas in Solo 18. Let us know in the comments your thoughts on this. But speaking of Lucas for a second, let's talk about the second biggest part of the story, which is that Lucas was allowed access to the vault of Solo 18, and we actually got to see the legacy, which again, as we predicted, is some sort of AI system that is able to recognise Lucas's identity and pour out information based on a question, which is just brilliant to see. And we also gained great insight into the vault itself, that it has sleeping quarters within there, as well as food, and plus this additional library with vast amounts of knowledge in there, which obviously predates everything from the silo, which for Solo 18 was 352 years ago. So it's fair to say this is also mirrored in Solo 17, which explains why Solo knows so much. Yet, there's an interesting theory that Ben has here, as well as to back up the fact that Solo is not from Solo 17, because the legacy can release data and information, but yet Solo, his knowledge is quite limited to what he knows. Even his conversation about the bends in this episode seemed quite limited, meaning that he's only got so much information, maybe from the actual physical copies of the books within the vault, and not the information that the legacy can provide virtually. Because, as Bernard said, the legacy contains pretty much everything you need to know just in digital format. And also, we must point out that the AI system recognised there was a Delta level event happening within the silo, as the guys in mechanical were utilising gunpowder to send a message throughout the silo, which paraphrased said that IT is lying and why do they still have power. And this was actually different from the trailer, as the message they read said Juliette lives. Now, could this have been a clever trick with some scene splicing like other TV shows and films do? Or is this something that happens right at the end of the series, as we see Juliette on the screens in Solo 18 after leaving Solo 17? But back to the AI. One, the fact this AI has the ability to report such events is outstanding, meaning there is some underlying system in the silo that works independently to Judicial, and the fact that all the cameras are meant to have been down and the radio. And the fact that this was only a Delta level event makes me question the severity of the incident. What would an Alpha level event be? Overall, this AI is impressive and makes quite a great addition to the series. And of course, there's a few other great little things that happen in this episode as well. Like the fact that Bernard spotted the relationship between Walker and McLean, knowing that they were actually divorced but still have feelings for each other. The ability to use that to his advantage. Again though, this to me seems like Walker's plan, as she turned on the camera for a reason, to make them look into her. There was also the power move between Sims and Bernard, as Sims refused to do what he wanted, which is now a fight for the top spot. As Bernard loses control of his own people, is Sims going to take advantage of this? Now, Ben and I disagree here. I think Camille is actually the mastermind in their relationship. She seems to understand people more, and it seems the further we dig into this season, the more clear it is you're going to need people on your side to win the silo. We're already seeing sides form, with Mechanical led by Knox, Rob and Camille Sims and their influential members of the silo, and Bernard and Judicial. The key aspect here though is that Bernard is losing all of his allies. Will Sims make a run for head of IT? Have we been led to think the rebellion is a big event, but actually the real rebellion is Sims usurping Bernard? Could we see Lucas somehow become part of this, somehow helping Bernard because of the allure of knowledge is too high? As some of our commenters have said that they think Lucas will become the new head of IT and be just as bad as Bernard. One of the best parts of the exchanges between Bernard and Sims was where Bernard said Sims lacks curiosity, implying Sims would have been an even worse match for head of IT versus him. We also need to mention, of course, at the start, we had the fact that not only does Mechanical have gunpowder, but they also shut down the electrics to the silo, but highlighting that important detail that actually it's still powered on by an outside source, resulting in Bernard having to switch off the power to IT. But that caused some ripples within the silo, and especially that within the sheriff's department as well. I find it very strange that AI can predict events, but isn't able to turn the lights off when the others go out. So let us know in the comments your thoughts. Again, remember, please guys, no spoilers, and if you must put a spoiler, let us know immediately it's going to be a spoiler. Right then, over to you. Do you think Solo has been killed? Do you think somehow Sims will usurp Bernard and make an attempt for the head of IT spot, only to be stopped by Lucas? And finally, will Juliette get into the vault of Silo 17 next week? As I feel at this point now, with Silo's life on the balance, as we don't know if he's the one being attacked or who did the attacking, will Juliette finally get her shot to get in? Thanks for watching. We hope you have a great new year. And as always, we'll catch you next time with something new.
Go home. That's it. That's the rest of your life. Now get out your rubber stamp and give me my...